All right, so we're actually live on YouTube. If you're just tuning in, we're going to kick in about 5 minutes, so you can just kind of slide forward about 5 minutes. I got to run a couple of tests here on a couple of audio things. Hey, can you guys hear me? Anybody hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
All right, that's good news. I am just trying to run. I'm a little early. Want to apologize for being early for once. I am going to try to run a test. I want to see if you guys can hear this. Just so I don't get my YouTube video blocked, I'll do something that's nobody else owns. Can anybody hear that? Do you hear any music?
No music.
Ixnay music. Okay. Duh. Okay, let me do one other thing here. Input device is external mic. Output device.
Can you get juice really fast? Oh, jeez.
How about now? Can you hear me?
We'll have to go around the corner because you can't go that way.
Can anybody hear
Are you
me?
okay holding that? Are you holding that way? Are you holding that way so I can't hold your hand?
All right.
Oh,
You can
that's
hear me
awkward.
now?
At least you can get the. At least you can get the ball that like a crop top on you.
Hey, somebody,
There's
whoever's
their
talking, can you mute?
They have it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
Does any of this go
So
with it?
somebody's talking to other people. Do you mind muting? I'm just trying to get a little communication to see if I can
None of
get
that?
audio working.
I have that at home. I just want like a little juice. Like I just want like a little juice carton
Okay,
to
I'm
drink
gonna
while I'm
mute.
at your house.
You should be able to right-click him and mute him for now. I don't think he can hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so I may have to just fiddle with this later.
What? Pull your shirt down? A little, yeah. It's in the back too. Like it's like just kind of wide on you. That's the biggest issue I think on that is that it's just like wide. No, it should be. You know, I don't want it in like a big. I just want like one Arizona for myself.
Oops, I just did that in the attendance. I don't think that's where I wanted to
Oh,
have
here
that.
it is.
Here we go, in general.
Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's me that's not muted.
I don't think that. Okay, so can you? Is my audio still working? Oh, it's 5:30. It's live time. Let me fiddle with something then, real quick. Check. Audio output capture. Let me get rid of that. Yeah, shoot. Sorry, guys. I got sucked into everything in the world. Output is going to be, should be multi-output. Okay, how's audio right now? Can I hear you guys? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you talking.
Okay, everyone's coming in faint though.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Got everybody coming faint. What did I have it set up as before? That would be good to know. Let me see. Check. That one. Can I get someone to just say something? One of the students.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, say it again. Just keep saying words.
Blah blah blah
Okay.
blah 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 blah.
Those aren't really words. Blah is, I guess, technically a word. So, but that. Okay, that's not helping me on that side though. All right, I'm gonna just try one more thing real quick, and then hopefully we can get launched. Oops, hang on a second. Output. Okay, let me see something. Okay, let me see. Can somebody say something?
What would you like to?
Just anything else. I don't know. I think I got volume control back.
So,
Okay, hold on. I'm just gonna grab some water.
can you hear me
then,
now?
Yeah,
Naming the
it's
blog
just
was
all
really
faint.
fun.
It just feels all screwed up. I don't know what I did. Just happens. Let me try that.
The good news is we hear you well.
You hear me okay? Is it? And can you still hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, let me grab some water, and then I'll be ready to rock and roll. Okay, friends. Do this thing. Yeah, I'm back, Franklin. No, it's just to get the OBS thing working right and streaming properly and popping out to YouTube and popping out to Discord. There's this convergence of settings, and it just seems like if you screw anything up, then I should write it down. I think I used to. I think I have a document somewhere. So, okay, we ready?
Ready.
All right. Okay, so everybody knows to jump over to the attendance channel, the text So So let me see. One quick thing. I got a couple comments. Wayne had made a comment. The last time I checked, I got to confirm with Devin and Tim, but I didn't see anybody actually given credit for attendance on the 25th. So I think we still need to go back through that. But the next day, the 27th, I think was all cooked.
Is it alright if I butt in real quick for that?
Yeah, Devin. Hey, Devin, you're here.
Yeah, hey, how's it going?
Good thing I didn't throw you totally under the bus.
No, you're good. I was gonna say if it would probably be helpful to me if I'm marking attendance right now for today. If you can comment in the attendance if you were here on the 25th and just say like the date, like with your name.
Okay, like just kind of now as a refresh.
Yeah,
I mean, we
just
do
because.
have them though, right? Going. Oh, it was in the main channel.
Yeah, and it's kind of, and not everyone has their name. Well, and then also, it's like in a conversation, so it's kind of hard to. I don't know. It's just easier if it's right
Yeah.
here.
And then we'll still go. Well, we can still go through and try to tease that out, but
Yeah, we
make it a
can.
little easier. Then we can search for all the stragglers.
Yeah.
Sorry for the hassle, guys. It's a matter of. What's it a matter of? Just getting our act together.
Well, I mean, now
getting-
that it's there, it's easier now. It's a lot easier to just grab the names.
Yeah. Thanks for that, everybody. Thanks for your indulgence while we try to figure all that out.
Thanks.
Okay. First item of business. Did I talk to you about the School of Rock in 305G?
Yeah, I think you talked about
Was it 2810 or was it here?
it. It was here.
Okay. So I must have done it in both places. All right. Thank you. Okay, just a reminder. I won't pitch that anymore. I just wanted to make sure that we had done the invite to everybody from both sections. So I thought I had done like one, but not the other. So all good on that one. And if you want part of that, and you need an invite, let me know. Okay. Okay, I wanted to give you an update on what's going down. It's only week 2. I feel pretty beat already. This does not bode well. Okay, so I want to just kind of show you what we've got so far on the schedule. Let me make that a little bigger. Okay, so what I have done is made these modifications to the class schedule. Okay. So those are the dates. That's today. Topic is listed there. I'm posting the lecture video. In fact, Devin, you can just even though it's streaming now, so we can literally make the link right now. But these are links to the videos, so they're always going to show up in the class schedule as we go. Okay. And then any reading assignments, I'm going reading/viewing assignments, and then any deliverables. Okay. So what this means is, look over here for like blog setup. You would just click on that, because sometimes any of the posts like current events, smallish post, any of those are due on the day of. Okay, so you got to keep that a little bit separate in your head. Current event and smallish posts are due the day of before class. Blog comments, just any time during that week. What are some of the other ones? The book-inspired posts are day of. So any of the blog posts are day of. Like LinkedIn profile, that's just kind of end of the week. And then we got interesting stuff down the stretch. I do not have all the readings and stuff in place yet. And it's still kind of like, I have a ton of readings that are all a little older from when I did this thing at the Y. and I want to try to bring it all up to snuff. And so I'm grabbing what I can. If there's not extra stuff, that's all right. Just easier for you guys. And if you see that little N dash or M dash, whatever that is, then there's just nothing to do that day. Nothing to do. Okay? Cool. And some of these we'll try to watch bits and pieces in class to pull some nuggets out of. And other times it'll just be there and you just need to go hit it. Okay? Alrighty, everybody cool with that? Yes. Can you hear me? Oh wait, are you? Sometimes I get into the state with Discord where I can't hear you guys. Can I not? Are you talking and I can't hear you? Sounds like it. Okay. Okay, I'm going to kill this and I'm going to restart it. All right, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
So frustrating, man. That happens like some chunk of the time. Let me see. That thing should still be rolling over there on OBS. No, I don't think it's going to let me. I got to bring up the little window thing again. Then I can. There we go. Okay. I think we're back and functional. Okay. So, let me see. First question. All of these are on Canvas? Yes. So, I don't even know what the dashboard is. Is that something that you guys get access to via Canvas or something?
It's on your left-hand side there, right underneath your account.
Right there,
It shows,
dashboard?
yeah, it shows us kind of like a stream of what's due.
So, that's what I get.
Give a due date.
Hang on, you probably get that too. So if I go over here, is that going to show me what you see? No. Well, this is one of the big struggles. Is it all this stuff? Is that... Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah, looks good.
So does that line up? Because that's my view. You know, that's all I see. And that's one of the struggles is that I can't, as an instructor, I don't see, you know, exactly what you see. And so, but I do think that set up. Oh, and the other thing I did because of some potential lingering confusion, I just put these readings due at the end of the week, which is already passed now. But what I try to do whenever there's something that's clearly I'm not being super clear or it's moving or it's waffling, I'll always pick some way of dealing with it that's fair to you. So I'm not going to be just like change something after the fact and then just like, well, tough if you didn't notice it. Student view in my Canvas. Where shall I find the student view? Let me see. Top of screen. Top of screen. Up here? No. Student view. I'm logged into student view with a very purplish reminder to myself. Okay, that just looks like my view. still, doesn't it? I don't know. Anyway, I'll try to align with somebody. If somebody can kind of just be available to make sure that the view you get is going to be functional, I'm happy to do that.
I think that as long as the assignments exist, they should show up on the dashboard. I don't think you have
Okay.
to do anything else.
Okay. Well, and then
But I'm
let's
not
just
certain. I guess.
let's just double check it. You know what I mean? At some point, if I can just get a student to walk through with me, so that I'm not. I mean, I'm with you. You're like. But I think I just want to make sure that whatever I think the assignments are is what you're seeing, and that there's not some screw up in between. Either because of a setting, or you know what I mean, or who knows what. So let's. I'm gonna just make a note of that. Okay. So, but I did want you to have a feel for the fact that I now have these 4 columns with what's the topic of the day with a link to the video, reading and viewing assignment for that day, and then any deliverables. And I think there was a question whenever it's current events and smallish posts, and any of the blog stuff, book inspired posts, current events and smallish posts, those are all day of. Comments are end of the week on an ongoing basis. That's pretty much it. And when there are bigger items or more unique items, like get your blog set up, do LinkedIn, those are end of the week. Okay. Let me back up, make sure that I am on board. Let me see. So, Erica, what do I posting the reading assignments in the deliverables? What does that actually refer to? Because from where I'm at, I'm doing that, I think.
So you have like the links to like the blog setup on the
But
right
like
on
the
the
actual
deliverables.
link to, you're talking
Yeah.
about, like if I go over here to the reading assignments, like that,
Yeah.
right? And just put that link as well. Does this do okay, so is that just because it's convenient to be able to click from the calendar to get there, which is
Yeah,
fine.
like
That's a fine
it's
reason.
not a
But
huge
does it do
deal if
something
you
else
don't.
as
I just have
well?
to. No, I would just have to check
Okay.
on the assignments every time that.
I mean, I
But
really am
it's
serious
not a
that
big
I
deal if
think
it's
it's
a
a
lot of work.
fine reason. I think it's a perfectly fine reason, and I'd like to have it be really convenient for everybody, to just kind of be, here's my dashboard, of all the stuff that's coming down the pipe. So you can just kind of go here, click the links, read the thing, and you're right there. Click the thing to say I did it. Right? That's just easier. Everything's kind of local. So yes, I will do that.
If everything we need to worry about is in the calendar, then we know where to always check. So
Exactly.
That's good.
Exactly. So I'll do that. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's just better usability. Okay. So I did want to give you a sense of that. Today, I mean, there was such a late break on some of this stuff. I think I was wrapping up some of these like Sunday or yesterday. But I do want you to give these a watch. I find, so Ken Robinson just passed away. This was one of the very impactful and early TED Talks for me, where he talks about learning and John Cleese talks about creativity. I find this thing by Cleese to be, well, it's really interesting because it's a little dated calendar wise. I don't know when he did it, the 80s, a while back anyway. So
I think it was 91.
when was it?
I think it was 91.
Okay, which for me might as well be the 80s, right? It's all just back then, and for you it's all like when you were babies or something. So anyway, it's one of those interesting things because when he does his little comedy, little interludes and stuff, it's not all entirely politically correct. Let's just say that. You have to put it in the context of the time frame. What he has to say about it's not over the top, I don't think, but what he has to say about creativity and about open mode and closed mode, and in particular some things that relate to, I believe, that relate strongly to the orders of ignorance. So, and similarly with Ken Robinson on the Do Schools Kill Creativity? So, I hope most of you, some of you still have a chance to see those before now. And then let me do because I want to try to talk about them today. Let me see it. Okay, so I got Eric's comment. Let me see. All right, so the question, does anyone know how broad the current event post needs to be? Why, yes, I do. Can we just blog on any? So, number one, I do talk about that in the syllabus. So, read the syllabus. In short, it needs to relate to the topic of the day. That's it. So, sorry. That's the smallest post. Current event, anything. Sorry. But yes, the current event can be anything that relates broadly to the class. It can't just be Jazz blow another lead or whatever. It can't. That's not going to cut it. But any recent, it has to be tech related. It has to be related to computers and society. Okay. Everybody cool on that?
So how recent does it have to be? If it's old and still relevant, will that cut it?
Yeah. If it's your own, if it's something, yeah, I'm not super particular as far as that's concerned. I mean, as long as it's relating to things that are current. If it's like, oh, here's if it's something that's interesting but sort of anachronistic and back in the past, then less so. But if there's something kind of going on these days relating to computers and society. So it's not even just about tech, like, oh, hey, there's a new Python virtual machine or something. I'm just making it up. That would not do the trick. Okay.
And for the smallish posts, they're due at noon. Is that right?
Yep. Noon the day of class.
So we're just anticipating the topic for the day? Before we have the lecture on it?
Yep, exactly.
We're writing on it.
Yeah, because the lecture, that's on those days, it's really a discussion that we're going to have. Sometimes it is a lecture, but there's always going to be, whenever there's a smallish post, there's going to be some readings about the topic of the day. And the readings can kind of be the spark, which also means, no, I deliberately made a current event on this coming Thursday, because then you're on your own because there's no topic. But before the weekend, I'll have reading assignments dropped in for these ones coming up. So the idea is everybody has a chance to do the reading and think about it. Then when we get together, there's more of a convergence and more of a discussion.
And we write the post like the day before, if it's on the same topic.
Yeah, and I can also, there's nothing sacred about noon, but what I don't want to do is have it be like it's due at the start of class, and then 20% of the class is still working on their post while class is happening, and then it's just disruptive. So I always just set that due some reasonable amount of time ahead of class, so that it's really sort of due. I would do it the day before. And we're going to talk about writing on Thursday, and give you a few, ideas about how to be successful at improving your writing. So
Cool,
yeah,
cool.
earlier start is better than day of.
So just to apply it for the videos, creativity and do schools kill creativity? Would you what would your preference be, that we had seen those before today's lecture?
Yeah, I mean, my bad on that one, because there was not enough lead time. You know what I mean? So that's absolutely on me. But if those have been sitting there, for the last month, to pick an absurd number that doesn't even apply to us, then it would be, yeah, it would definitely be better to have seen them before class.
And then totally like whatever that video. Should we have watched that before next lecture?
It would be ideal. That was one I'm kind of torn, because that's one that I've often shown in class. It's only like 4 minutes or something pretty short. So any of the ones that are in these are going to be better. Like, for example, down here, no, where is it? Yeah. This right here, as we get down to these topics, the CBS News did these original reports, are about a half hour each. One on cancel culture, one on censorship. Really poignant, really current, and quite a decent. It's a little bit almost like the old 60 Minutes or whatever. I'm kind of impressed by the reports. Those would absolutely be best to have watched before class.
Gotcha.
So yeah, when in doubt, watch it before class.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, you're
Just so
welcome.
we're prepared for the lecture.
Well, right, and every class has got a different structure, and it's trying to find what is that professor's approach, and you can't avoid that, just because every professor's kind of got a different, what is the priority, you know what I mean? Like the old thing about reading the professor's mind. That's actually true, and there's no way around it, because everybody's got different ways they like to do things, Like, for example, I've actually heard from students, some professors prefer you call them professor. Whatever, that's their problem. Some professors are like, only talk to me on Canvas. And I'm like, whatever you do not talk to me on Canvas. So I apologize for that. It's just one of the things. Okay, let me see. Am I missing any comments so far? Yeah, so Erica just made a comment about, right, and this is also, by the way, one of my rules. The comment is that if I don't get it posted with enough time, I'll make the actual due date later, to be as fair as I can be. And one of the things that I believe in, emphatically, is whenever the professor, me in this case, does something that's really not fair to you, then you don't have to be a jerk about it, like, yeah, cut some slack. Here's an example. One of my daughters at a school in college had there was some midterm in some class. Doesn't really even matter, right? But it was a midterm, and then she shows up at where it says time, place, whatever, for the midterm, and there's like one other student there and nobody else. They're like, okay. So she checks in with the teacher. I'll just say it wasn't computer science, but checks in with the teacher. Is like, yeah, I went to the thing, and the teacher's like, yeah, I changed the location. Okay, and how was I supposed to know that? It's like, well, in the syllabus it says this location, and the teacher was like, well, yeah, but in another place in the syllabus it says this other location. Now I just think, can I betray my own kind, namely teachers? Although it's not really my own kind, because absurd teachers. And the teacher was like, well, you really should have been there. I'm not going to excuse a midterm, like 30% of your grade or something. And she was not going to let her take the midterm when, and she's like, well, it says two things and I did one of them and I couldn't have done both of them. You know, that to me is like, what are you doing, teacher? You know, so that kind of scarage, just, you know, whenever I've done anything that is just not, you know what I mean? If it's not clear or whatever, then that's just on me. I don't understand. I don't understand why people have to act like that. So, and then, yeah, recommendations for Mason about places to go for current events. I agree, Wired. I don't know Motherboard, but I definitely agree with Wired and CNET and Gadget. Agree with those. If you have a Mac laptop, there's the News app on the Mac, which I find not bad as a source. But again, you've got to try to narrow it in. With Wired, you're pretty much already there in the tech space. So, okay. So yes, on Mr. Knutson is going to have that stuff up with enough time for you all to write a blog post. And if I don't, if I screw it up, then I'm not going to hold it against you. That's my core philosophy. And yeah, okay, yeah, and I just want to say, yes, that was nightmare, but the true nightmare was the fact that the teacher, okay, let me get into a couple of things. Number one, whenever a professor says to you, and you know you've heard this, well, there's nothing I can do for you. When you know full well that there is something they can do for you, then you got to know that that's bullcrap. So what I tend to do, I tend to respect it, and I tend to do it. If there is something I can do, but I feel like it would not be appropriate to do it, I'll tell you that there is something I can do for you, but that I don't think it would be appropriate. And then here's my reasons why. I just think that's more intellectually honest. To simply say there's nothing I can do for you when there is a lie, for starters. And it's kind of a retreat behind your doctoral robes. You know what I mean? I'm going to hide behind my mantle of authority. And I just don't believe in that. I don't think it's the right approach. I think everything you do ought to withstand scrutiny. So, that's my approach. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, one other thing. I really don't mind if you have questions or whatever about grades and things. There's a thing that sometimes happens where a teacher will give you some speech about how grades don't matter. Have anyone had that? Where they give you like, well, you know, once you got your job or once you're out in industry or after whatever, and nobody cares about your GPA. Has anyone heard that from a professor?
All the time.
Okay, I think that's bullcrap. But not only is it bullcrap, I'm going to double down on this. There's a utility function that actually satisfies these constraints. The professor asserts that grades don't matter. You assert that grades do. Therefore, give the student the grade the student feels that he or she deserves. Because you already said to you it doesn't matter. That doesn't just mean it doesn't matter to you if the grade's lower than it should be. If that statement's true, it would also be that it doesn't matter to you if the grade is higher than you think it should be. Because you just asserted that it doesn't matter. And if it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Okay?
Isn't the sentiment that everything from a C to an A is equivalent, right? Isn't that usually how it goes? If you pass, then...
And based on some criterion, that's true. You know, on a certain criterion, it's true. On other criteria, it's not true. So I actually pulled that stunt when I was an undergrad. I actually said that to a professor once. You know, that, look, there's a utility function. If you don't care and I do, then give me the grade I think I deserve. And we're both satisfied.
I appreciate it.
It didn't go over.
It's a good challenge.
It didn't wash. Yeah, and I'm like, so it does matter to you. So you do care. Grades do matter. Besides the fact, if you're thinking at all about grad school, scholarships, I mean, there's a certain threshold where there's a threshold where it doesn't really matter, truly, you know what I mean? But if you're dealing in scholarship land or heading to grad school, where the grades actually make a difference. Or if you're just rocking a solid GPA and you'd like to put it on your resume. You know, you're not going to go to grad school, but you just like to be able to say, computer science, 3.6, GPA, something respectably good and solid. And if you don't have a great GPA, you leave it off. But, it's just, anyway, I think that's dishonest, in my opinion. One man's opinion. Okay, so what you'll see from me is at every level, I really don't mind if you've got a problem or an issue with grade or, whatever. Also, as me and Tim and Devin are doing grading, you'll notice when you look in the syllabus that there's a pretty coarse-grained rubric on grading the small blogs, right? Like, for example, I think it's a 5-point scale, and if it's one paragraph, that first blog we're going to talk about on Thursday, one paragraph, if there are no grammatical mistakes and it's a cogent thought, then you've got all 5 points. It rewards a solid effort, and it's like a sigmoid curve that rapidly punishes. Any typo, -1. Don't have a typo. Okay. You don't actually have to have a typo, and it's okay to have somebody else edit it for you. Take a look at it. They can't write it for you, but after you've written it, they can go through and walk through and edit. Okay? We'll talk more on Thursday about that. Okay. Yeah, I think I just addressed, well, we'll talk about it Thursday, but I think I addressed the grammatical errors. What about, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Nice. Pain is temporary, GPA is forever. Okay. One other thing I wanted to say that I had, and I'm not going to name students, unless they want to be named or, but I had a conversation with one of the students last week, and this is sort of in the spirit of, I wanted to say this. If you have a problem with the grading, one of 3 scenarios usually plays out. One is that the grading was done kind of correctly to my, spec, but there's some things you don't understand, and we'll help you understand it, right? The other is it was done incorrectly, which means we didn't understand something, and it's also possible that we both don't understand something, okay? And so my philosophy of life is to not care who's right, but to try to figure out what is right, always. So I'm only really interested in what's the right thing. So if a student comes to me and is like, I feel like this grading on this exam wasn't fair, well, let's look at it, because if it wasn't fair, I want to know that. I'll give you one example. Just today, I found a mistake in my spreadsheet from spring 2020 for CS 2810, where there were 3 students that had actually been a half a grade lower than they should have been when the grades were done. I just discovered that today. What did I do? I changed their grades. I just jumped online and changed their grades. One of them went B+ to A-. The other 2 went from C+ to B-. I'm just saying, it's never too late to try to do the right thing. And what are we doing? Like, I'm nervous that I'm going to be found out that I was wrong once. Oh man, get used to disappointment, because I'm wrong all the frickin' time. And so are you, and that's the beauty, is we all are, which is really kind of topic of today. But so in the spirit of that, so one of the students, again, I'm not going to name students when we've had private conversations, unless you're cool with it, then you can come out and say, yeah, it was me, but you don't even have to. But the student basically just said, I'm going to paraphrase too, I can look up the chat, but basically it was like, you said something about 1984, that it was kind of an attack on, communism and socialism. And he said, I just kind of take issue with that. I don't think that's accurate. So I kind of went, okay, it's been a long time. I'm in the middle of 1984 right now on a reread, but I read it in 1984, which you might know it was 36 years ago. And back at that time, I was in a deep George Orwell phase where I did a lot of study about Orwell and his life. And I read almost everything he had ever written back then. I was in my 20s. And I realized in the conversation, and by the way, still an ongoing thread. And again, to unnamed student, you know who you are. Killer conversation. Just, it's like best part of my week so far last week was that conversation. But it started with, I think you may have overstepped your bounds a little bit. I started looking at it and I realized, you know, so his compelling evidence was Orwell was a socialist. That's pretty damn compelling evidence, you know. So you got to look at that, you know, let's be fair. And I realized that there were a number of reasons why I think my comment was justified at some level, but without offering everything that goes along with the justification at that level, it was an overstatement at face value. And therefore, I shouldn't have said it. It was fair to say that Orwell was anti-communist and that he was, in particular, anti-Stalinist. And that, I think, is very clear, and I think I don't have any hesitation to say that. But I think that in light of everything, I think that, you know, socialism in that sense, lumping that in was not a fair characterization. So, you know, and then what we embarked on this, again, ongoing but amazing conversation about socialism, and the key for me is trying to understand his perspective, you know, and I feel the way about, you know, really anybody. The coolest conversations of my life are the ones where you're respectfully sitting down with somebody that maybe you don't, I mean, maybe you do agree with, but their perspective is coming from a different angle, right? Maybe, you know what I mean? You agree, but your experiences getting there are different, or you just flat out disagree. And sometimes what I'll do is, I have friends on, I'm social media fasting for September because I've just had it. But I really dig having friends and, you know, compatriots on social media that are all over the political spectrum. And then sometimes what I'll do is actually reach out to, you know, somebody that's not where I'm at politically, and then just be like, because I know it's a trusted source and we've got this trusted relationship, and we can just have this most amazing conversation. I'm like, can I vent about something? I need you to calibrate me and help me understand from your perspective where I'm wrong. And not so I can back myself and come at him. You know, come at me, bro. Somebody got a come at me, bro gif they want to throw down. But, you know, that's not the motivation. The motivation is, there are times, you all know this, right? There are times where you're talking to people that are just different from you. Belief system, life experience, politics, religion, sports affiliation, you know, whatever it is, right? And if you can have oh, there we go, yeah. Let me see. Oh yeah, so Eric just said 1984 is anti-authoritarian left, not anti-liberal. Is that what you meant? Not anti-liberal left. Agreed. It is more than anything anti-authoritarian. More than anything anti-authoritarian. Oh, libertarian left. Yes. I agree completely. It was the authoritarian bullcrap that, you know, and what you'll note, of course, we'll get into it. We've got a whole section on freedom of speech, privacy, and what have you, right? Which all relates to 1984. Anyway, I just want to say, you know, to the student that, you know, we launched the conversation. It was amazing, but I've had the most amazing conversations with people where they're like, you know, okay, here's where I agree with you. Here's where the perspective shifts and differs. And it is so amazing because every time that happens, I always find common ground. Always. Did I say always? I literally always find common ground whenever that happens. And I want to show you one other thing that relates to this. Again, this is, believe it or not, we're on the orders of ignorance. Yeah, I got some slides, but, you know, we'll get to it. But I wanted to share something. If I can, I should have already had this. Okay, let me see. This is like one of the reasons why everything makes me crazy. but it was I just glanced at Twitter, and somebody, it's so odd for Twitter, but basically this person went into this long multi-tweet diet. I was trying to see if I could just find it, because it's so hard to do this kind of self-righteous bullcrap, to do it justice, right? And this, by the way, and this is very, very important, this is not about political position. This is about humanity, okay? In my view, it's really about humanity. And I'm not going to find it. I already know that, which is just tragic. On the other hand, I don't need that toxicity in my life again. But the bottom line was, this person said, you know, it was kind of like I understand and believe, and everybody's right to view, you know, to express themselves and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, but then you understand that you could plug in any, yeah, I found your Twitter. You could plug in any of the political perspectives, and this is not partisan. And you understand that, right? And the truth is, I don't even know if I fully remember like what the perspective was of the person, because I see it everywhere. But basically, it was all of just about how if you believe this, you are a bad person. And since you're a bad person, I don't have to respect you. And, you know, and then you're not worthy of common decency. They were like articulating this thing. And I was like, what in the ever-loving hell has happened? Maybe it was always like that. Maybe it didn't just start with this generation. But you know what I mean? Because I think, right, no, this is the point, right? Not even uncommon belief, but just differing belief. Doesn't have to be uncommon, but especially uncommon. But, you know, just the notion that, so I love the fact that I can have these conversations with good friends that are all over the map politically. And yeah, differing opinions, Wyatt. But it comes down to, believe it or not, the orders of ignorance, which comes down to an acknowledgement and a recognition about a little bit about epistemology, you know, the kind of the nature of knowing stuff, and getting a little bit more comfortable saying that you don't know stuff. And so I want to throw some slides up to talk about the orders of ignorance. But there's something I want to say, and this is so important, okay? This should be like, we should make a poster out of this, and it's like the class poster, okay? But it is basically this. I'm going to give you a little speech. You're like, you? Give us a speech? Yes. For once, I feel like you need a speech from me. Okay. Think about this for a second and see if you agree, disagree. But every one of us, I believe, holds things in our heads that we believe to be true. Fair? Self-explanatory? Given? It's axiomatic. Everybody has beliefs. And of their beliefs, that of all the things that I believe to be true, I believe them all to be true. We cool with that? That doesn't seem super debatable. Okay, so there's all this set of things I think are true in my perception of the world and life and whatever. And I believe them all to be true. Now here's a problem. I also, at the same time, know that it is not possible, like literally impossible, for that previous statement to actually be true. Not the statement, but the assumption, right? In other words, of all the things that I believe are true, it can't be possible that I'm right in every respect. Everybody buying? Not possible. Not for me, not for you, not for anybody. Okay? So what's the problem? Anybody want to postulate? Right? I've got all these things I believe are true, and I know for a fact that at least one of them, and probably a bunch of them, or some cross-section, is in fact not true. What's my problem? I mean, that's a pretty good confession. Yeah, it's cognitive dissonance. But yeah, what's my...
You don't know what isn't true?
I don't know which ones. Yeah, I don't know which ones, right? But I know. So therefore, when you bump into the ones, when you discover that it wasn't true, what we mostly do is we just get all like freaking defensive. We're just oh, I'm just like, I got to retreat into my shell, you know? And I'm thinking of a bunch of movies where there's some villain who's like shamed and has to like, look around at people, you know what I mean? As they like shamefully retreat into the shadows, because they're just so terrified to be wrong. And we've created, somewhere along the line, a culture has evolved in which you just can't be wrong. You got to have a position, own that position. If a politician actually evolves in their thinking about something, then we call them a flip-flopper. Now there are in fact sometimes you can talk about politicians that seem to sort of chase whatever the winds of popular opinion are, and they appear to not have any real backbone. Okay, number one, of course, you don't actually know that because you don't really know what's going on inside of them, right? So what usually happens is your own team, the one wearing your own team jersey, you give benefit of the doubt, right? And the one wearing the other team jersey, is an a-hole. That's pretty convenient, right? Little confirmation bias for the soul, So anyway, yeah. So I can't. It's been a long time since I watched Megamind, right? Anyway, but this is my point. And so what you need to understand about how I approach this material, this class, our discussions, I'm going into this thing assuming. I mean, I had a good one last week. That's not even really a big one. There's some. I know why I did that, and I still think I was wrong. But you just need to understand that. And I've seen plenty of videos. You've seen them too, right? Secret videos captured by a student, right? And the fundamental punchline of the secret video is that there's a professor who's ranting about some political something. And it's pretty obvious that if the students in the class don't parrot the perspective of the teacher, their grade is going to suffer, right? You know what I'm talking about. Okay, this is not one of those classes. In fact, I will have the greatest respect for you if come at me, bro. If you just come at me, be respectful. We don't have to be jerks, which this student that approached me really was. I was actually quite impressed. But, just understand that I already want to know when I'm wrong. I want to know where my belief system is wrong. And I love those conversations. Sometimes as I get deep into it, I realize that some of my perspectives were based upon things that either I, didn't really know to be true or misunderstood a certain thing. When I pivoted that, then some other things change and it ripples out the other side. Other times it kind of takes me more, down to the well. I got to go down, deep in the well. And when I get down there, I'm just like, no, I really think my approach here was right. And I think my friend's actually wrong. Still love my friend. But I think that where they got logically was a little messed up. But all of it is respectful. All of it is, not partaking of that sort of self-righteousness. I think that there is that level of self-righteousness, which is not a very effective way of managing ignorance. Okay, because the truth is we're all ignorant, and if we live on the frontier of learning, the frontier of research, of knowledge, you are always living in a space where you're wrong a big chunk of the time, where you're ignorant a big chunk of the time, right? You can't learn. Ignorance is a prerequisite to learning. And the failure to admit ignorance is a failure to learn. It's a failure to stop the learning process cold before you even start. And we're like, well, it's okay if it's calc because I don't know that, but it's not okay if it's politics because I know that. Yeah, get off your high horse. And in fact, one last thing on this, and I want to hit a couple slides. So I saw a video. Oh man, maybe I can find it. I should have these all set up. It's just the way the day goes sometimes. But Somebody had posted an old video. It was very old, of John Cleese, always John Cleese. His analytical whatever are just great. Anyway, it was from like the 80s, I think. And he was doing this thing about extremism. I don't know if anybody has come across this. It'd be great if I could find it real quick. If it's not, the only problem is it makes me go to Twitter, which is just currently, it's just making me crazy. What was really interesting to me about this one was the video, the Cleese video goes, I'll see if I can find it. The Cleese video takes off and he's talking about extremism. And see if I can just find it handy. Anyway, what was really fascinating was the comments on Twitter immediately afterwards. They were basically, it's a little bit when like people start to sound like the Onion, but without a sense of irony. You know what I mean? Anyway, Okay, so managing ignorance. So this stuff, really, I owe tremendous debt to Philip Armour, who has actually become a friend. But he wrote a book called The Laws of Software Process. Boring title, boring cover. But in this book, he laid out, I'm so ill prepared. I don't even have I thought I had a cover. I'm gonna break into a little Calvin and Hobbes here. But he laid out this orders of ignorance thing in a way that I hadn't quite seen it done before. And it really stuck. The concept of like, you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, known knowns and all that kind of stuff. That's not an unusual idea, but he brought it into software in an amazing way. So let me do this real quick if I can. This is probably difficult to read, right, for you? So I'm going to do a thing where I'm just going to move this over here and zoomy zoom. Is that a little easier to read? So it starts here with Calvin going, uh-oh. And over in this one, he says, oh no, everything has suddenly turned neo-cubist. It all started when Calvin engaged his dad in a minor debate. Soon Calvin could see both sides of the issue. Then poor Calvin began to see both sides of everything. The traditional single viewpoint has been abandoned. Perspective has been fractured. The multiple views provide too much information. It's impossible to move. Calvin quickly tries to eliminate all but one perspective. It works. The world falls into a recognizable order. And then in the last one, he rolls in and goes, "You're still wrong, Dad." This is so good. So good. And this is why Calvin and Hobbes is a legendary comic strip that the world is just better for. Bill Watterson, genius, absolute genius. Okay. Anyway, the idea here is we get this cognitive dissonance, and the problem is we have a handful of options at that point. And, typically what we do, what happened? It doesn't matter. We're going to be okay here in a second. I think I think I actually messed it up on the actual slide. It doesn't matter. But anyway, it's that fundamental idea of just being comfortable with being wrong and being comfortable with being ignorant. I don't think it's an insult, especially when someone says, "What are you, ignorant?" You're like, yeah, in fact, I am. Shall I, let me count the ways. There is a nearly limitless set of ways. And in fact, what's interesting is the stuff that I know the most about is the stuff about which I'm actually truly the most ignorant, I'm going to try to give you a couple of examples of this idea. By the way, let me see, where's my comments? There we go. All right. Yeah, well, it's interesting. So somebody just said ignorance is a choice to ignore information, and it's not. Ignorance is the being devoid of information. But being ignorant, remaining ignorant would be a choice to ignore information. I think, and I could be wrong on this one. So if you wanna, so Aiden, if you wanna, do some dictionarial research and see if I'm ignore is a verb, but I'm talking about the state of being ignorant. Let's look. Let's. Okay. It might be round 2 for Dr. K has overspoken. So, well, actually, Aiden, I don't want you to agree to disagree. I want you to help me to get smarter. So I'm serious. Drop a couple. If you can drop a couple things in there, do a little research on that. Here's another thing that happens. I'm really serious. I'm very sincere. I don't want to remain. Wyatt, be quiet. Wyatt rhymes with be quiet. I just realized that. No, seriously, Aiden, I really. All right, so we got some definitions. Destitute of knowledge or education, lacking knowledge or comprehension of the thing specified. That's really what I'm talking about. Not necessarily the result of wanton ignoring, but rather the state of lacking knowledge or some comprehension. That's really what I'm getting at. So, nice. Okay. One of the things that happens, well, let me get over to some slides. Something that happens to me a lot. I really just want to understand. I don't care if I'm right. I'm as excited, maybe more excited actually, to find out that I'm wrong. Because that's when the new vista appears. If I'm wrong, it's like, wow, of all the things that I believed were true that aren't actually true, I just got rid of one. In as much as I can hope that this is now right, but I might be in an intermediate incorrect. You know what I mean? I don't know. I may go for a while and double back to where I started. I don't know. But I don't have a stock in whatever I've said once or believed once. I am constantly open to and evolving because I just think it's arrogance any other way, really, at some level. To be confident about your own positions, I don't think is arrogant. So children lack knowledge. So here's the thing, I think, Aiden, you asked, don't children lack knowledge? And hang on, sometimes the comments scroll too fast. Don't children lack knowledge, but you wouldn't consider them ignorant? Okay, I think that you're viewing the term ignorance as a pejorative. And I don't view ignorance as a pejorative. I view ignorance as a state of lacking knowledge. Therefore, I would say that children are, by definition, ignorant of a lot of things, of most things. And that's okay, because that's the nature of being a child. It's not any more of a negative to me than those little children, they can't even walk, right? And the children are, right, so as Franklin said, versus willful ignorance, right? So I don't consider, so are children ignorant? Yeah, absolutely, of most many things. Because I'm not perceiving it as a willful act, or a character flaw, or an unwillingness to want to know. And I consider myself ignorant, but I think that some people use the term as a pejorative, as a negative, like a character flaw, and I just don't see it that way. To the other definitions that you shared. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, nice. XKCD for the win. Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for XKCD. Yeah. So here's what I want to kind of get to. Let me hit a couple of things, and I'm actually going to jump to an interlude, and then we'll come back to the orders of ignorance, the actual orders of ignorance. So I think that there is a mindset where we're all so terrified to just say that we don't know something. I think it starts in like junior high or something. I don't know when, middle school. But there's this part where someone's like, early in your life, somewhere along the line, you encountered a social situation in which somebody was talking about something and you go, what's that? Like whatever, it's the 60s and you're 7 years old and you're like, the Beatles, what's that? Right? And then there's usually some jerk who's just like, you don't know what the Beatles. Yeah, I don't know. This is one of my impersonations of a jerk in the 60s. I don't know where this comes from, but you don't know what the Beatles are? What are you, stupid? Well, then what do you learn? Memo to yourself. Oh yeah, don't ever admit that you don't know something. So right? I mean, I'm exaggerating the point, but not really. Are you with me on this? Are you buying? We somehow pick up this, and maybe your family structure. In some families, you're like, wait, what is that? I don't know what that is. Oh my gosh, you got to listen to, like someone mentioned some music, right? And you're like, whoa, who's that? You're like, whatever, right? Who's Ed Sheeran? Now that would shock me. But, there are some other famous artists that I don't know. Maybe I've never heard of, possible. Unlikely, but possible, right? And you can just go, whoa, you're shocked. You can't even imagine it. But there are some environments where they just be like, wait, you don't know who Ed Sheeran is. Oh my gosh, I got to show you something. You're going to love this, right? That's that kind of like the thrill of a new discovery as opposed to the shame of an admission of a lack of knowledge. And shame for an admission of lack of knowledge is just about one of the most distorted things I can think of. It's like the root of so much distortion, I think, in the world, right? And and if I could get down to, I'm not going to bust all the way into the space, and I would invite you to not go there either. But when I look at a lot of let's just call it the crap going on today, the thing that makes me insane is just watching people, full-grown adults, maybe not fully mature adults, but physically adult humans, screaming at each other. And I don't care whether they're in suits on television getting paid a lot of money, because you know what that is, right? The talking heads thing. Or if it's just two people on a street with somebody filming, right? To me, it's the same behavior. And none of it has any humility to it. None of it has any desire to learn, desire to know, desire to understand, So I just flat out won't engage. I just won't engage in it. You know what I mean? If you want to yell at me, then you're just an a-hole. I'm sorry, you are. Nobody needs to do that. And if you're yelling, we can't have a conversation. But at any point, if somebody's willing to sit down and have a conversation, that is thrilling and great and amazing, and I love it, love it to the depths of my soul. So that to me is really about having humanity, and this is, again, one of the struggle I have with team politics is the tendency to, it's still like team sports, right? You ever seen a call that was so flagrantly bad? I'll take the pass interference that kept the Saints out of the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Let's go with that one, right? Some people don't think that was pass interference, and I know what team they cheer for the most part. We get this. It's very difficult to just get comfortable with just, I don't know. So the bottom line, what you have to just kind of think about is the fact that, all the spaces in our lives that are false, they're like false vistas. They're like a painting or a cheap imitation or a water paint on butcher block paper or something. You tear it down, you get that real sunset, and you're like, okay, wow, that's amazing. But we can't fear, you can't fear shifting your view. You can't, fear coming to some deeper understanding, right? I want to hear more, Franklin, what you had to say about the distinction between an argument and a breakdown in communication. I think what you're trying to say is that in an argument, there are specific, shall we call them, arguments presented, Well, like, well, I think this and I think that, and that leaves that. Well, yes, but, and there's an exchange that's healthy, whereas a breakdown in communication, when you're yelling, there's no communication. There's just a complete disruption of communication. And then all you're really doing is just venting your spleen. And then what's really interesting to me is watching somebody vent and get riled, and they're going and going and going, and then the other person's not even saying anything, and the other person's getting more and more mad. Well, remember the fish story, right, where all the change happened in the student? Well, if someone's yelling and they're getting more and more enraged as they yell while the other person doesn't, where's all the change happening? Inside. I thought you were going to say, Wyatt, it's your job to yell at people like that. Okay, so I talked about the paradox of I don't know is when you're in when you're in a group of people and you're the one who's willing to say, I don't know what that is, you're the one constantly learning. And paradoxically, you're the one who actually knows the most. You're the one, you show me somebody who is comfortable to say, if you're comfortable saying, I don't know, and you walk into that same group of people and say, who's the individual most likely to know more things than anybody else? It'll be the one who says, I don't know. You buying that? It's a paradox because that person's not afraid to be ignorant, not afraid to recognize the unwillful ignorance, the desire to acquire knowledge, the desire to acquire. So that person paradoxically is going to just know more because they're constantly looking stuff up, constantly trying to figure stuff out. I started to say earlier, one of the things that's happened to me a number of times. So I know I know a bunch of things. I read a ton. I'm always sponging. And one of the things I remember being in a conversation where there were like 5, 6 people and they were all debating like we just did. When I called you out, Aiden, I was not calling you out or criticizing you. I was like, I really wanted to know if I'd blown the definition. I was not trying to be right. And if you'd come in, and laid it down, I would have been like, okay, I got to change that, right? I mean, this is just how I roll. I remember being in my late 30s when I decided that I didn't like my handwriting. And so I changed my handwriting when I was almost 40. I just did that. They're just, just make these decisions. I'll come to a realization. I just 3 weeks ago, I'm not going to tell you what it is because it opens up a topic, but I realized that there was a word that I was using wrong for a long time. Okay. And my friend who I love, just like, whoa, do you really mean that? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I don't. And I wasn't just like caving and waffling. I was like, maybe I don't. Well, because I think maybe, are you meaning this? I was like, I don't actually know what I mean. And then I'd go and hit the dictionary, dig in. I'm like, no, I think I've really just been using that wrong for a really long time. Pivoted. And now I don't do that wrong anymore. I do plenty of other things wrong. It's that. And when you've got great relationships with good friends and they know you have that exchange where nobody's worried about being wrong, you'll find yourself being able to say, I don't think that's what you were trying to say. Maybe it was, did you know that that's not actually the expression? Okay, so this has happened where you're having a conversation, everyone's arguing about the definition of a word, right? And I have my opinion. I think pretty sure it means this, right? And I remember once being in a group of people, family members, whatever, and I just pulled up my phone and they're like, what, are you just trying to prove you're right? I'm like, no, look, there are half a dozen of us. We're arguing over the definition of something. We're not in any kind of agreement. If only there were a device about the size of a Pop-Tart, maybe slightly heavier, that would answer all questions in an instant and sitting right here. What if such a device existed? Oh, wait, I have one. Yeah, arguing over facts. Thank you. Arguing over facts is the dumbest thing because you can kind of look them up. So we looked it up and it was like, but But anyway, but that misunderstanding, like, oh, you're just trying to see if you're right. I'm like, no, I'm trying to understand what is right. And I'm equally satisfied if I discover that I was right. Because if I discover I was right, it reconfirms to me what I thought. And if I discover that I'm wrong, then it reconfirms to me that I was wrong. And now I know something. Does that make sense? That's the quest. That's the quest. And then we're about out of time. But the sunk cost fallacy, right? It doesn't matter how long you've believed something to be wrong. One time when I was must have been in my early 30s, I was having a discussion with somebody older who was in his 50s at the time. And I just remember having this discussion, and he was all like proof by authority. Like, I have known this thing since I was your age, or I've known this thing when whatever, I was doing this and this and this when you were born, this kind of crap. And I just said, and I looked at him and I just said, again, I'm like 30, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm right or I'm wrong. I believe I'm right. But you understand, right, that the length of time that you hold a perspective has no actual bearing on the truthfulness of your perspective. You know that, right? It has no bearing. Sorry, Well, does that mean you're right? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean I'm right either. So I just want to say, to kind of end on this, as we go into this, there's a handful of dicey topics. I have literally had people like recommend to me, oh, you do not talk about cancel culture. Oh, you're going to stream this to YouTube? Yeah, that's not going to end well. I've literally had people say that to me this semester because I'm like, we're going. But the key is that everybody understands. I'm on record here. Everybody understands that I don't know if I'm right, even when I think I do, and I'm happy to be wrong. But you have to still go after it respectfully and exchange information and try to help us understand what's real. And everybody, but you don't need to agree with me, and you'll probably more earn my respect if you don't. I'm not saying take a contrarian position just because you think. I'm just saying you absolutely do not have to remotely agree with me, either privately or publicly. And because I still what I respect more than anything is thoughtful exchange, and goodness and humanity. That's what I really respect. You yell at me, you're an a-hole. I don't respect that. I might even respect the perspective you're yelling at me about, but not how you're going about it. You know what I mean? Might even respect your passion. But if you scream at me, you're still an a-hole. There's no room for that. There isn't any need for that. It's not going to help anybody come to anything. So anyway, that's sort of intro into the orders of ignorance. Because we're talking about ethics, we're talking about history, we're talking about current events, we're talking about free speech, and there are so many topics. And I just want to make sure we understand the ground rules for the class for everybody, including me. And when we do that, there's some amazing learning that happens when you just, when we all start listening and trying to articulate as well as we can how we feel and do it respectfully. And if I ever cross the line, you have to call me out. Okay, you have to call me out. And if you believe I've said things that are wrong, I would like to be considered a friend in this context. As a friend, I hope you would come and, like the other student did, and call me out and just say, I just don't think that's true. And what you're going to find in me is me going, I might not be. Let's figure it out. And if you'll help me to see your perspective, it's probably going to help me quite a bit. So that's kind of what I'd ask for as an exchange, is that we're all kind of willing to do it. And if you're happy just lurking and not wading in, that's totally fine. But, I want to be able to have people respectfully share perspectives about things, but respect is critical, absolutely critical in all of that. So anyway, we're over time. This has been good. Good, I hope.
Good.
We'll actually do the 4 layers the 4 levels of ignorance, the orders of ignorance on Thursday, and then we'll pivot into writing. And get ready to write better, because it's going to be miserable, but we're going. I'm dragging you there. So, okay, everybody, hey, stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane in the middle of all the quarantine stuff still. It's hard. It's hard. You know what I mean? For the extroverts, it's hard. For the introverts, just keep gaming. You're fine. You just keep doing what you were doing. For those of us that need, it's really hard. You're like, I need a hug from somebody. I really do. Some of you are like that, and it's getting really old. So do what you can to try to be emotionally healthy, in all of this. Come to the School of Rock, for example. Whatever. Anyway. All right. Hey, take care. Be good. I'm going to cut loose. I'm going to stop my YouTube stream. And I will see everybody on Tuesday. Well, actually, I won't see you'll see me on Tuesday.